You are the problem when you try to sell your own product or service. Once you are a victim, you lose power because you are being oppressed. So you can never be in a strong situation as a victim. That is fundamentally broken as well, and so that would never work either. It's not information they're looking for. It's usually acceptance and power that they need to take back in. Or different kinds of ways that human beings tend to think that self-sabotage or create high emotional suffering. What I'm saying there that I think is really important is that you have to understand that they're really just looking to be loved and accepted. And inside the irrational thinking model, there's actually 15 different irrational thinkings. It's helping them understand where the false belief is and where the giving away of that power to another is actually stopping them from having what they want. And they have a reason why they're not ready to go forward. It's because hi, good to see you. I'm Isaac Ho with Get Premium Clients Online Organically. And today I'm going to talk about how most people, maybe even yourself, you are the problem when you try to sell your own product or service. And what I really started to realize is that once you start to have leads, like the sweater says, I'm all in, cool. If you're all in with leads, that's awesome. How do you get leads? And then how do you convert them? And what I learned at an early age, when I started my business at 22 years old, it wasn't cool to live at home, and it wasn't cool to be 26 and still live at home, but it allowed me to invest into my business the way that I needed to, and to really hire the coaches and get the mentorship that I needed to grow where I wanted to. And so something that I learned really quickly is that when it came to selling, that I was part of the problem. And I see this all the time. Once we help clients generate leads, one of the things that we see is how they sabotage their own sales success. So the first thing we have to understand really is the way of thinking. So to tell you a story, I remember one time I had a sales consult, and my sales consults were super important to me because when I started becoming an entrepreneur, I realized that it was really hard. Like, you had to run the business, you had to run the operations, you had to run the fulfillment. Not only that, but you had to take care of all the back-end bookkeeping things, which were things I hated, so I avoided them for years. It was just a lot, and I thought I was just going to get into business and just help people by providing my service, which was a personal training service at the time. And what I quickly found out was that I needed to do everything. So every moment really mattered. And specifically in the moment when it came to getting new business, because when I started my business, the thing that happened was, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation yourself, is that if I didn't get this client, it was literally the difference between me paying the rent for my lease on my gym or not. So I really needed to convert these clients. And my lead gen, the way that I was getting clients, it was like a lot of it was referral at the time. And so people would hear about me, or people would see a Facebook page or something. So it would either be a referral, a tag, some kind of outbound, and I would get this person interested in my product or service. And then I had to get on a call, get them to a meeting, service them, and then get them onboarded. And so what I found out really quickly was all the ways that I would butcher these, because I only had so many attempts in a month, and I really need to earn the income for that. And I realized that I was a huge part of the problem of getting this person to sign on. And I'm going to show you something super fractal here. When it comes to us as service providers being the problem for converting clients, is remembering something very simple. So if you're having a sales issue, you're probably thinking about it in a specific way that creates you having a sales issue. That's fair, right? And like, if you're a health and fitness coach like me, when you have people that come in and they need health and fitness services, they usually think about their health in a way that creates them having whatever issue that they're having. And so you can't think about it in a way to get yourself out of the situation. And so the most common objection that people get is actually, let me think about it. And why that's happening is if you don't address the way that someone is thinking about their problem with them in the conversation, they will need to go think about it, because they actually think that thinking is oriented around a solution, and it's not, because the thinking has gotten them stuck. And so that's really important to understand right away, that the goal of having that sales conversation with someone is actually to get them clear that their thinking is part of the problem. If you don't do this, what happens is you'll generate, let me think about it, all day long. So how do we get someone clear? Really what we're going to do is there are 3 layers that you have to go through, and it's really easy. I have a simple acronym, and just think about it like this. When you ask someone, like, all right, are you ready to go forward? And they have a reason why they're not ready to go forward. It's because, let's say my dog died, I took a poop yesterday, whatever the thing is, it's always a cause, okay? And so COS, that's what we're gonna look at today. The C stands for circumstance, the O stands for others, and the S stands for self. So you want to write that down, C-O-S, circumstance, others, and self. And so once we realize that the way we're thinking with that same way of thinking is never going to generate a different situation for us. And I learned this because I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and I had this friend that I would work out with all the time. He had all these great ideas, all these great thoughts, but his actions didn't match any of these thoughts, and so he stayed in the same place. And, we were a couple guys in our 20s, kind of living with our moms, and it really didn't progress from there at all because we were just thinking about things. And even the new things we were given, we were just regurgitating those through the same thinking filters that created us really being plateaued. And so it's the same thing for your clients and the same thing for yourself. So you want to realize that your way of thinking is always going to filter out whatever information is given to you. It's probably going to create the same net outcome. And so what you want to do is actually be clear on the people that you're offering product, service, benefits to. What are the ways that they think about that? Because as long as they think about it that way, it's probably not going to work out for them. And they're going to come to your sales call once you have that lead and you nurture them. They're going to come to your sales call, and they're probably going to use that same way of thinking to go think about it to not purchase a solution from you. And that's really the primary reason why people do not buy. It's not about service, like rapport and all these other things in sales are really important. But at the end of the day, the person is making a decision with the thinking that their brain's attached to. Whatever thinking they've been using is probably going to be part of the issue. So let's look at the 3 issues that we have to help someone become more aware of inside of cause. So they can't buy cause. First one, circumstance. So circumstance is the economy, it's COVID, it's any of these things. So what we have to realize is that somebody somewhere has done more with less. And once you realize that, I'm going to share a story about this. Once you realize that, what you realize is that it's not the resources that people need, it's the resourcefulness. They need to find the resourcefulness inside them. And so when circumstance happens, for example, there's some gyms that just went out of business during COVID. And gyms like ours pivoted towards more online service-based products and services. And so what happened is we were able to keep our income, keep our team. We didn't have to fold and close. And a lot of that was inside of the way that we thought about finding solutions. Same with an online company. I knew an online company. They were a 7-figure coaching company. And when they needed to move with the COVID space, they simply just went onto an online platform instead of going to in-person networking events where they were getting client acquisition from. And so the circumstance is not relevant because once you blame circumstance, you give power away. And it's not like it doesn't make an impact. It's not the deciding factor that determines the results you get. And so if your clients blame circumstance, so for example, if they go, yeah, I was on YouTube and I was getting leads or whatever, and now I don't because they changed the algorithm. Okay, cool. So what have you done since then? Okay, do you think if you're on any platform that it's going to change? Ever? Okay, cool. So then would you agree that one of the things we need to do is to be adaptable and current and probably create different forms of own media, so even if an algorithm changes, you're not left with 0 lead acquisition. And so we have to decide and pre-plan and understand the way of thinking that creates obstacles for our clients when it comes to circumstance. So that would be number 1. And here's the story that I have for this. Is that a friend of mine, I met him at a retreat, a men's retreat, and he really wanted to have a coaching business. And he didn't at the time. He was a fitness guy. And what happened was he found out that his fiance had cancer. And he was so poor at the time that he couldn't afford to eat food and feed her while she was going through chemo. And so what he did was he put all his money into getting her the highest quality organic food possible. And he, out of a food bank, literally went to a food bank because he didn't have any money. And when he wanted to open this coaching business, he talked to a coach, and the coach said, hey, you need to figure out how to be resourceful to get yourself out of the situation that you're in. And he got off that call, and he didn't know how to do it, but he called. He went, I'm going to try. Called credit card companies. He called the credit card company he owed money to, and somehow they gave him an extension, and now he has a vegan fitness coaching business that's doing extremely well. Okay. Now, that's a guy who literally had to eat at food bank, owed money on top of money, and found the resourcefulness to get himself out of the situation, the circumstance that he was in. So what did he need to do in order to create that? Well, he had to take responsibility and power back. Because what he was doing is if he just said, well, no one's going to give me the money without doing anything, then he's saying, I release all my power around being able to impact this situation, change this outcome. And when people do that, they are lost. And so if you are a service-based provider, what you have to look at is where people lose their power around circumstance and how you support them in the call so they can move out of it, because they're never going to get a new result thinking about it the old way that's created them being stuck in that situation. If that's really helpful for you, I'd love to hear in the comments. Also love to hear, like, what are some of the things that your people that come to you for help or support to get to a new level, like, what is the issue that they have when it comes to circumstance? So the first C in cause is circumstance. Now, second one is others. So others, and this is really common, is like business partners. I have to talk to a partner, I have to talk to a husband, someone, I have to talk to my dog, I have to talk to my therapist about, talk to someone. And so it could be their employers, their employees. They have to talk to someone about power. And so we can blame circumstance, and we can also blame others. Now, the interesting thing about others, and the way that we can think about others, is that usually others comes from support or permission. And so what that means is when somebody says, like, I need to go ask this person, it's like, one, you have to find out, have they made a decision that they want this themselves? That's the first, because a lot of times people will actually blame others so they don't have to take responsibility. And that's usually what's happening. Now, the other thing that can happen is they can go, well, I invest in this and the person's unhappy. Okay, cool. Person's unhappy. So do you think, like, if you invest in this and they're unhappy, do you think they'd ever get over it? Yeah, okay, cool. So then what would happen? Well, nothing. Okay, so then what you're saying is that you could actually have this decision and have these things that you want, but you're choosing not to. And so what we're doing there, and I'm not saying that I would use that way of overcoming that objection, I have before, but what I'm saying there that I think is really important is that you have to understand that they're really just looking to be loved and accepted. And inside the irrational thinking model, and what we mean by irrational thinking models, there's actually, I think, 15 different irrational thinkings, and these are different kinds of ways that human beings tend to think that self-sabotage or create high emotional suffering. And one of them is, I have to be loved eternally. Like, I have to be loved by this person deeply no matter what. And so as they are engaged with an action where they think that it may cost them love, then they will not take that action because they actually have this false belief that people need to love them all the time. And so it's helping them understand where the false belief is and where the giving away of that power to another is actually stopping them from having what they want. Now, one of the things I'm going to say here too, and like if this is helpful for you, I'd love to hear in the comments how you experience this when people look for others. There's lots of scripts, okay? There's lots of things you can say to people. I've had incredible situations where people have gone away and be like, I really don't have the money, but I'm going to go see what I can do. And I talked to my partner and I was highly supported and I came back and guess what? I'm able to find an extra $300 a month to be able to do this. And they did it for over 2 years and they got incredible results. And of course, when they invest more, it means more to them. But why I'm sharing this story specifically with this client I had is because one of the things that she had to do first was be willing to support herself. So in the conversation, what we looked at was, how did she do with supporting herself? And that was her problem. She was hard on herself. And so then when she didn't succeed, she would beat herself up. And then she wouldn't want to ask for support because she felt like she was a failure and she just let everyone down. So the first step is, are you willing to support yourself, loving yourself instead of needing that from someone else? Once that was established, then cool. Are you willing to go ask for support from the other people? Do you know how to do that? And then what's the relationship like in terms of support with your partner? And so when that is in the correct place, the sale comes together. Now, one of the reasons I'm saying like there are scripts, there are other things that can be done. Taking the action, like saying, okay, I'm going to love myself, and then I'm going to ask people for support. Like taking that action is transformational in itself. But when somebody can see in your conversation the pattern difference between how they were being, how they have been, and why that thinking has created all those problems for them, and then they can take that and then restructure that into an action and choose the action, that is transformational. Because not only are they taking an action, they know what has not worked and all the things they can do that will actually change that in the future. So whether they buy from you or not, they're incredibly served. Like you just gave them a huge gift. And so one of the reasons why I am a huge champion of service providers and salespeople when they use these kind of models of selling to actually help people see the past result is because it creates the ability for them to consciously realize the thinking hasn't worked and they have an opportunity now to choose a new way of transforming. And I love that because it's not just like, I want you to buy. It's not about that. What it's about is, can we change this so you can make the best decision? And can we change this so you can actually get a life transformation? And that is super, super cool and super important. So what I usually have people do, and what I recommend for you to do, is you take the other situations that show up inside of your sales and you actually work through those in a progression where you can help that person understand and see that they may have a pattern. So what are like the common 3 to 5 patterns that happen around others for your ideal client? Now, what kind of questions do you need to ask them so they can start understanding the impact of having lived their life that way? So for example, it'd be no different than if your best friend was dating someone all the time and they're like, I date this person and people treat me like garbage. Oh, okay, cool. So you have a pattern and you probably have a way of thinking about choosing that person. You have a way of being with that person. It creates this pain for you. Awesome. Do you want to stay in that pain or do you want to do something different? Because I understand that if we just get off this phone and I just say, hey, I've got a great friend that would probably treat you well, you're probably not going to change. And that's how a lot of people try to sell. They do that. Oh, this guy would treat you way better. You should do that. Oh, well, they don't address all this. And so what happens is we need to shift that person through so they can actually have an experience where they have the opportunity to grow and they can see what that's been creating. And it's actually healing. And that's why I love selling this way, because it's healing inside the sale. Cool. So the last part is going to be self. And so circumstance and others, those are layers of where we give away power. It's all about giving away power. Like we said, it's about resourcefulness, not resources. And so if we're giving away power inside of either this is happening to me, which is circumstance, which is the fatal belief, others, which is I need them to accept, love me, or approve of me, and then self is the last thing that we really need, which is I am in control. I am the self. And what this usually looks like is people actually doubting themselves. And so the fear is that they won't follow through, that they won't get the outcome, and somehow that means something about them. So they delay making a decision because then they don't have to be in the experience of being like, oh my gosh, I failed again. And then that's painful. And remember, human beings are just wired to avoid pain. And so that's why so many times I'll see as a business coach that I'll have someone that goes, yeah, I had this opportunity, I have all these leads, I have this huge following, and they're making no money. Why is that? Because if they actually had to go and ask someone for money, they would be in pain at the experience of getting no. Like, it's a reality check. You're not making any money. I don't have to buy your product or service. You've done all this work. You don't really have these opportunities because you're missing something very fundamental. It's broken. And that's like the offer and the sales. And so up until that point, that person doesn't live in that world. They live in the world of all this opportunity, but no money. Instead of, I found out that I'm actually not getting any money, so I need to change all these things so I can actually have opportunity. And that is what happens when somebody decides to make a change and take responsibility for themselves. When they take responsibility for themselves, they're actually saying, I'm willing to be with my failures, which means I have to face that and I have to improve myself and I have to love myself through those failures. And that is the highest, or we could say deepest level of self, is where you can fail and be okay with yourself. You can fail and still accept yourself. And so many people try to avoid that part. And as a result, they need to go think about it, which if we understand that time is a construct, it's not like a real thing, then you don't really have more time, do you? You can't go and buy more time. So what you really have is the actions you take that compound over time that create an outcome. Simple, right? So you can think about working out all day, it does nothing, but if you just do 10 push-ups a day, that compounds over time and you get a different result in your body. And so the only thing that actually matters is the action over this idea of time. So thinking actually does nothing. And so that's why thinking sucks. So thinking sucks. And if you haven't thought about it this way before, it's probably why you haven't closed sales or you struggle with certain kind of people in sales, because you're not addressing all these pieces and you're getting this okay? So what we have to understand is that it's being in the experience of being able to accept and love yourself. And a lot of people are not taught that. And so fundamentally, when we're little and we grow up and we go through some kind of traumatic experience, all of a sudden we go through this experience where it's very painful, where we're no longer loved and accepted and perfect for how we are. It's like there's that moment that changes. And then it's about trying to get that acceptance back. And so then we do all these things to try to get that acceptance. But what it usually turns into is we haven't dealt with the underlying pain that we have. So now we're trying to be accepted, but we're trying to avoid not being accepted. And that just doesn't work because of polarity, right? And so polarity is very simple. It's like You can't have the front of your hand without the back of your hand coexisting. That's a law of the universe. And so you can't have failure or success without both of those existing. So when a person is trying to avoid failure, what they're really doing is they're fundamentally not healed, and they could never reach the level of success that they want. Okay, and so teaching them that so they can move through and have faith in their self, that is the final layer. So once again, we'll cover the 3 layers. We have the C, which stands for the circumstance. So that's happening to me. Remember, whenever it's happening to you, it means that you are a victim. Once you are a victim, you lose power because you are being oppressed. So you can never be in a strong situation as a victim, period. Others, I need to be loved and accepted by another person, something outside of me, and that has to be always approved, okay? That is fundamentally broken as well, and so that would never work either. And the last one is self. I want to be successful, but I don't want to experience the pain of realizing that I haven't somehow hit the mark because I don't love myself enough or can't accept myself enough to be with myself in that experience. And so if any of those 3 things are present, the person has to delay and think about it or go seek some kind of other approval. And it's not information they're looking for. It's usually acceptance and power that they need to take back in. And those are the 3 layers that you need to do. Those are 3 layers that I learned that I had to go through opening up my business. And if you resonated with this, I'd love to see in the comments. Hopefully that this has been helpful for you. It's helped me. It's helped my clients use this system. And I really love it for high ticket models specifically. You can use it in any other context or format, but I think it's a very high ticket way to sell because you are actually actively helping somebody heal. And me as a therapist and a healer, it's one of my missions on this planet, not just to sell a product or service, but to create a transformation. And every action we take creates these kind of physical effects, but who we become through the process of that creates that internal effect. At the end of the day, the body will fade, the things will fade, but the spirit stays intact. And that's really what we're trying to promote and actually grow. And that's what I find is, to me, the most valuable part of being a coach. So, hope that's helpful for you. If you're like, man, I loved everything that you just taught. I love the idea of going through this model. I can totally see how this helps, but I don't have any leads. Okay, cool. Well, you're gonna get premium clients online organically. And so this is about getting leads. And so the thing that we have coming up in, I believe it's just 1 week away, I can't believe it's almost July, is we have Captivate. And that's where Natasha teaches you how to get leads organically. And so it takes whatever audience that you have already established and the eyeballs that are looking at you. How do you get these people to engage with you, raise their hand and say, yes, I wanna work with you. And I want to have a conversation about what that looks like. And then you can take all those things and apply the model that I just showed you in Cause to actually help that person make an informed decision and actually heal and grow and mature themselves so they can actually get the result they want. The other thing that I love to do that comes in later with clients is after that person signs on, how do you keep that conversation of growth going? And how do you help that person develop? Because that's really what retention is built out of. And so I need to get my person to wave my hand and say, I want to work with you and engage in conversation. That's Captivate, and that's in July. There's the thing that I just showed you how to do, which is using the cause system to actually have them be the cause of changing instead of just saying, I can't cause, okay? And then there is, how do you continue that conversation so you can have retention and get that person incredible results? And if that's helpful for you, then check out Captivate in July. You can drop a comment in the chat. If you just type in Captivate, I'll make sure that you get all the info. Thanks for watching, joining me. Love to be part of this group with you, all entrepreneurs, and I'll see you in the next